guys, Dane from Scoggin-Dickey Parts Center, and this is a little bit of a different environment. We're not actually at the dealership. We are off-site at our secret laboratory. I don't have my lab coat on today, but we do have something really cool. We've got a few different blocks here in front of us. So these are going to be, we're going to kind of go over and do a little comparison between the OEM blocks as well as some aftermarket offerings that we have both in stock and that are actually out in the aftermarket already. There's one that's not in our inventory that we don't have in our hands right now at the moment at the time of this filming, which is going to be the one from Cali's. But the rest of these, we're going to kind of do a little bit of a deep dive. So we have on this one here, this is the Dart block. This is our OEM Hellcat block. And then this one here is from our friends at HHP. They managed to supply that one for us, and we have a cool project coming up on that one later on. So I'm going to go ahead and start from this side, kind of move our way over on some of this stuff. We had Kurt Urban come over, and we were talking about blocks because as far as making power and pushing blocks to the extreme, Kurt's done a pretty good job of it over decades of experience. And so there's a lot of things that he can look at and identify a lot faster than just about anybody else in our department could have. And so it's a good opportunity to have him here and be able to look over these blocks. So this one here is from Dart. There's a variety of options that they have as far as bore size, as well as whether it's going to be VVT or non-VVT support. But you know, this is a really nice setup as far as an iron block is concerned for you guys that are wanting to push things a little bit further past the OEM point. Maybe you pushed your original Hemi a little bit too hard, or maybe you took that one out and you're wanting to maybe save that for later, for, you know, if you want to swap it back in for, you know, collector purpose or whatever. This one is a really nice piece of kit. It's also very robust and very beefy. So first off, on the weights on all of these, the Dart block, we actually put these on the scale and we weighed all of these whenever we put them on these stands. The Dart comes in at the heaviest at 242 pounds as dressed right now. It doesn't have any of the freeze plugs, no cam, there are no cam bearings in this whatsoever. It does have the hardware in for the mains. So that's pretty robust because the OEM block is 204 pounds. So there's a good bit more cast iron on this thing just to, you know, make it a little bit more robust, like I keep saying over and over and again. But it's thick. You can look at the cylinder walls on this. Everything else is very, very noticeably thicker all the way across the board. So you have a block that can handle the power. You're not going to have as much deformation whenever you start pushing the power, especially for you guys that are running blower cars. We talked about that in depth with Kurt as well about you know, trying to look at maybe changing the operating window as far as RPM with your blower cars to where you can actually make your components live better. We can talk about that in another video later on, but really this one is a really neat setup. It comes with its 9.285 deck. As far as the board is concerned, you have a few different options. You've got 3.927, 4.090, and 4.250 for you guys that are wanting to go way past your standard size, because 3.927 bores are your 5.7. The 4.090 is going to be for your 6.4 and your Hellcat, and then 4.25. I can't remember off the top of my head what the max recommended bore is for this, but 4.25 is going to be pretty healthy. Another thing that's going to be different between these versus the OEM blocks. These, of course, for you guys that are running aftermarket stroker kit, you know, moving up to a 426 or a 440 or anything like that. This one has your oil piston squirters. For you guys that run stroker setups, those get in the way in a hurry. Some people don't check your tolerances and you end up knocking those things off just the first time that you start to twist things around on the rotating assembly. So barring that, it does not have provisions for your piston oil squirters in this block at all. All that stuff is got, you've actually got more clearance because of that. By moving all that stuff out of the way, you're able to get a little bit more clearance for your rotating assembly. For you guys that are wanting to run a longer stroke, running bigger, thicker rods or anything else like that, that's going to be really nice for, kind of clearing out the wheelhouse there. But like I said, this one doesn't have the freeze plugs and everything else in it. So when you're doing all the machining on this block, you need to be mindful of that. And also, if you're not the machinist yourself, make sure you take all the parts with you and also discuss everything in advance with your machinist so that they understand what they're about to get into as far as making sure that everything is aligned properly for whatever power level you're going to be making. So on this, the other fun part is all of these engines are set up to be able to accept your standard internal oil pump. So all that stuff bolts up like it's supposed to. Be able to run your regular oil pan or an aftermarket oil pan. I don't really see a whole lot of people running an aftermarket dry sump on these, but for you guys that are doing it, kudos to you. Okay, so we've got these blocks rolled over, and we're going to talk about really the important part of this is going to be the mains. So like I had said before, with the OEM block for both the BGE and the Hellcat blocks and everything, these do have piston oil squirters that actually protrude out from the center of the block and squirt up into the cylinders. So those spray the back end of the pistons. It's supposed to be for cooling and some other things, but really for you guys that are going to be running a larger stroker setup or anything, thicker rods, those are going to be in the way, and you'll find out about that really quick. So of course with that, you don't have to worry about that with this block here. So for this one off of the Dart, there is not anything there at all. There's the oil channel is non-existent. They've actually moved it over to the side, so everything runs across in a regular galley, but not in the middle. So you've got a large window right there where normally you would have the piston sprayers. So going from that, the aluminum block also does not have that, but it does have that channel in the middle. The mains. This is going to be the fun part. So the OEM one, like we were looking at just a little bit earlier, is that this does have the side bolts, but it's a 2-bolt main with 2 cross bolts. So of course, for most of y'all, that's going to be plenty. And we've seen that is plenty for a lot of the people because we've seen how much the power is handled on these stock blocks. So this one here from Dart, no cross bolts, so it's not going into the skirt, but they are splayed main caps. So you go from a 2-bolt main to a 4-bolt main, and they are splayed. So when I talk about splayed, that means that you have one rod, or not rod, but one main bolt going like this, and the other bolt is at an angle. So that distributes things a little bit differently. Also, whenever it comes down to this one is really neat because the fact that it is splayed, you have a lot of strength, but the thing is, it's only in the center. The end caps are not splayed, they're actually 4-bolt and they're just straight up and down. When talking about this aluminum block, this one is 4-bolt mains in the middle, but it has 2 bolts, 2-bolt main with cross up front, but these also do have cross bolts on all the mains here. These are not splayed, they're all vertical up and down, but of course, once again, we were talking with Kurt about this, and he likes it because they're very nice and beefy all the way across, especially for an aftermarket block. You want some of that rigidity, that way you've got a really firm foundation to be able to handle a lot of power. The other part that is a discussion that we've had before on our LS engines is that this setup has only a 180-degree thrust bearing. So some people will actually make modifications to this and do a 360-degree thrust bearing. That requires additional machining and also some really good bearing selection. So this block, as well as the Dart block over here, has only a 180-degree thrust, which is going to be right in the middle. And then of course, which is essentially going to be just like the OEM setup. So we're going to roll these back over and we'll finish up talking about the rest of these blocks and kind of go from there. This is really cool. We've already gone over these quite a bit. The weight on the Hellcat block was 204 pounds. So like I said, the Dart was 242, this is 204. And so of course, this one has the oil piston squirters. We've already gone over a lot of this, and for you guys that are pretty well knowledgeable about the Hellcat or the truck BGE blocks, I mean, all this stuff looks pretty much the same. So now, of course, some of y'all are probably like, dude, you've got an aluminum block? What's going on with that? That's right, we've got an aluminum block. So this one, when we weighed it, Kurt was actually talking about this, is that the dart block is really on par for you guys that also speak GM language. The L8T block that we actually use and have pushed to 2,000 plus horsepower, it's about the same weight. So there's a lot of things that he liked as far as like the thickness of the mains. Everything on the bottom end looks very beefy and ready to handle a lot of power. So this one here, it's going to be fun. So this block is 118 pounds. So really, I mean, freaking cool. You can stack two of these together and it's still lighter than the one from Dart. But lightness is really nice. You're going to have some trade-offs, and it really depends upon what you're going to be operating these engines at. So really, when you're going to be setting up a power level or a target or what you're going to be using it for, really need to pay attention to the capabilities of the blocks, as well as understanding, you know, what you're going to want to get out of them long term. You can make a lot of power out of these aluminum blocks, just like with our aluminum rods or anything else like that. You're going to want to consider doing a teardown service, like, you know, after so many runs or after a season or mid-season, if you have a lull, for you guys that are able to afford a secondary block or a secondary, you know, have a backup engine, to have these torn down and looked over. It's going to be something to consider, especially when you're starting to move up in the power range and starting to really push these blocks and deform them. Really, at the moment, we're going to be pushing this one, but it's not going to be a boosted block. This is going to be Project Rosie in the future, and this is actually going to be an NA440 that will be going into an older Mopar. We're actually looking forward to that because it's going to be an absolute screamer. And we're looking for some high RPM and a high amount of fun. So this one, 4.050 bore. You also can, the max bore is 4.185. This one does not have the oil squirters as well, so that's another thing. You don't have to mess with all that stuff. You don't have to plug it. You've got all that clearance for maximum amount of stroke. And so also, this one, it comes with your head studs, or not head studs, but your main studs. It does not come with the bearings at all. You have to supply those yourself. So be mindful of that, especially when you're purchasing these components. If you have any questions about it, feel free to reach out to us. We've got our phone number plastered all over our website as well as online. And one of our guys will absolutely happily help you out with being able to spec out your setup for this. This engine is really neat. We've got, you know, for one, I would love to be able to mess around with an aluminum block and do something along the lines of what Project Rosie is doing, but for something more along the lines of road race or autocross. But really neat. Also, the other thing to think about, when you are going to be moving this block around, say if you're going to need to be doing the installation or putting it in for machining, the factory fixture is on this block already. Just like, say, for your regular factory blocks here, you can put the mount there so you can actually, you know, wheel it around or put it on your crane or anything else like that, or your engine hoist for putting it in the car. That one does not, so you're going to have to get it a little bit creative and do it a little bit differently. So really, that's kind of the thick and thin of it. Like I said, we don't have any information on the Cowley's block at the moment. We'll be looking forward to how that one turns out. But really, these are going to be a good opportunity for somebody that's going to want to push their Hemi to the absolute maximum. And so, you know, we've already seen how fast some of these are just with the stock block, and people are pushing things even more, wanting a little bit more robustness, especially for you guys that are doing drag and drive events, that you're not just drag racing it, you're driving at long distances. You want something that's going to be more reliable long term, that can, you know, have a little bit more durability as far as that is concerned. So really, that's kind of the thick and thin of it on these blocks. We're looking forward to how all this stuff goes. And once again, thanks for stopping by for one of our quick little tech videos. And feel free to stop by again next time for another one. And hopefully we will have something on the dyno.